Hello, I'm Thomas Hare, Chief Content Officer of the Performance Driven Marketing Institute, a not-for-profit trade association that serves companies in the performance and direct-to-consumer marketing world. Welcome to the latest episode of Take 20, created by the PDMI's Brand Response Council. These 20-minute live conversations featuring the leaders in the performance marketing world speaking about the hottest topics in the industry are scheduled twice a month. Before we get to today's conversation, a quick housekeeping note for you. We'll be addressing any questions from the audience at the end of today's session, but you don't have to wait to ask them. Utilize the questions tab on your control panel to type and send your question in, and we'll be collecting those and try to get to as many as possible in the final moments of this episode. Today's event, Data Privacy in 2021, builds on the PDMI's recent conversations on the topic, including a Take 20 episode last fall and an in-depth roundtable of legal experts at PDMI East Virtual in March. Obviously, we're keeping a keen eye on regulation in the space and the real-world applications affecting marketers, agencies, and ad tech leaders. To that end, today we welcome attorney Reed Freeman of Venable LLP, who's joining us via phone, just having some issues with his camera, but he's definitely here verbally. So we're welcoming Reed. We're welcoming Shira Witelson of RSLT.io, an ad tech and analysis leader. And we're hoping to welcome Ron Hadler of Red Door Interactive, an agency in Tucson. Ron has not yet joined us. As always, I'm happy to welcome our host, Chris Foster, Vice President of New Business at Modern Postcard. Welcome all. I'll let you take it from here.
Great. Thanks so much. Welcome in, everybody. And thank you, Thomas. And welcome, Shira, and welcome, Reed. We're so glad you're here. Wow. We've done this a little bit before, right? So this is kind of a data privacy redo, right? It's been about 7 months since our first episode or Take 20 episode on data privacy. And my, oh my, things changed, right? There are new challenges that brands and consumers have when negotiating the relationship of giving and using data. In 2021 is new legislation, awareness, and policies. Think of Apple's recent decision to limit the data sharing with Facebook. And it makes it natural for us to take another look at the recent actions and their impact on all of us, both as consumers and as marketing professionals. So for example, I was telling the team, since we last touched on this issue, Susan Del Bene, she's a Democrat out of Washington, introduced legislation to the Congress entitled the Information Transparency and Personal Data Control Act. Now this act in the guidelines seeks to federalize what some more progressive states like California have already done with the CCPA. So the question is, what does this mean from a federal level? Is it continuing to be the Wild West of states offering different legislations, or will there be a broader and more sweeping federal mandate on data privacy? Like Tom mentioned, we are joined by Shira from RSLT.io and Reed Freeman from Venable, much brighter brains than me, especially when it comes to privacy. So Shira, I'm going to start with you. With the new Information Transparency and Personal Data Control Act, do you think there's going to be a federal version of the CCPA or the GDRP coming anytime in the foreseeable future?
I believe so. I believe this is where everything is going. I feel that, you know, first, privacy awareness is increasing drastically, right? We see it everywhere. People are more aware that the electronics they're bringing home are in fact monitoring their activities. So this increase in awareness is starting to enter everywhere. For example, on smart TV, right? Why I'm doing this parallel, because data that is collected from smart TV is also coming from uninformed consent. So it's imminent that anything related to uninformed consent will be across the board, not only on mobile for Apple, but all the mobiles, on desktop, and also on smart TV. So it makes a lot of sense to me that it's going to become something wider and federal at one point, yes.
Sure. Reed, from Venable, I think either you, but a bunch of folks are in DC, right? And I apologize, I don't know where you're calling from, but if you are in DC, there must be a lot of action and talk regarding this federal proposal. What do you make of this new federal legislation that might be coming on board?
Well, this is just one of 5 other bills pending in Congress on privacy of various flavors. Do I hope there will be a comprehensive federal privacy bill? I think everybody does, for the most part. Advocates do. It's a bipartisan issue for all but two issues. It is ripe because of I know when something's ripe when my mother knows about it. Who's 76 years old, and she sees it. It's in the paper, and she now understands what I do for the first time in almost 30 years, basic. So yes, we all hope so. Business, advocates, legislators, academics, all would like to see federal privacy law. Do I think it will happen this year or next year? Well, I don't think it will happen this year. The Congress has an enormous number of priorities. This is not in the top 50 probably, and the president has a lot on his plate, and only so much, only so many, so much bandwidth on this, and so what would cause a federal privacy law to happen? Okay, so the impediments to a federal privacy law are two. The first is whether it would preempt state laws. Democrats would like that, except for this bill, which is a Democrat where there is no preemption, but that's not typical, and it's not typical of the Democratic Party. And the second blocking agent that's blocked 3 times previously big attempts at federal privacy law is a private right of action. Democrats generally like to have a private right of action. Republicans tend to like to not have a private right of action. That means class actions. And so what would get us over that hump? I think what would get us over that hump is a number of other state laws where it becomes where they begin to conflict, where they begin to make business difficult. The data breach notification laws are generally, businesses were generally able to figure out how to do state data breach notification laws, even though there's no federal standard. But privacy is different, and the laws are different. Virginia is different than California. The CPRA is different than the CCPA. And I think if we start seeing more of these passed, particularly ones with a private right of action, where there are class actions, I think that brings, I think that joins the issue and hopefully would get us over the hump.
Sure. No, I love that idea, because the idea that state laws, multiple state laws, can be a tipping point, where in 2019 it might have been the Wild West of various states doing things. You can imagine then the response from the Fed side, whether it's 2022 or 2023. And what I thought was really interesting, Reed, is that you said, do you think? Yes, but you actually said the word hope. You hope that there is one. And I thought that was pretty interesting, because for me, the hope is not that regulations, but I think it's really for clarity, right? It's hope that there's clarity then for consumers, it's clarity for business, there's clarity for the technology behind it. And so that way there is a broad, clear understanding from a consumer side of what I will give you and what I'll be getting and what you're allowed to use or not use. I think that's probably where I was thinking you were going with the word hope. Is that correct? I think that my question might have stunned Reed. Either that or he said, that was the dumbest question, Foster. I'm out. Think.
You know what? I can jump in here. I do hope too, because I believe that people need to have the option to decide if they want to share their data. So I'm an attribution provider, right? My company is an attribution provider, and I believe there's other ways to get insights. There is, maybe let's talk about the Apple, right? The Apple privacy change.
Let's talk about that next, so go for it, Shira.
Okay, so let me maybe give a bit of background to those that are listening that do not understand what's going on in the background. On mobile, on iPhones, there is a number, a serial number that's dedicated to that iPhone. It's called IDFA, right? If you download an app, a Facebook app, Facebook till not long ago had complete access to that number. Let's say you download another app, a fitness app. That fitness app also has access to that IDFA number. And because everybody has access to that IDFA number, everybody can talk between them. So the fitness app can ask for a promotion of 10% on Facebook, and Facebook will run it. But now there is a dark side to those IDFA. And the dark side is that those IDFA can be connected to name, address, passport number, or what you can see in terms of privacy. Now, what Apple did said no more. Now, instead of making people opting out from this IDFA, agreeing to share this IDFA number, they will have to agree to share it. So it's an opt-in approach. Now, what happened, we saw, based on the number that I read, it's the opt-in rates for, based on this privacy change, are around 5 to 12% only.
5 to 12% opt-in?
Opt-in.
So if I can read that back so I understand this well, Shira, you're saying that Facebook could be in a situation where 90 to 95% of Apple iPhone users choose not to share that IDFA number with Facebook. Is that correct?
I don't know if it's 95%, but I can pinpoint the exact number. It's a very high number.
It's a big number.
It's a huge number, because let's say, attribution provider that leverage this IDFA to create the path to purchase. You understand a path to purchase, for example, someone saw an ad on Facebook and then on Google search and then saw an ad on TV and then he bought an item, right? They cannot pinpoint now anymore when this Facebook impression appeared.
So they're not able then to tie in the attribution to the Facebook ad to the purchase.
Correct. Only if they.
Right. Shira, I'm so glad that you said this. You really simplified it for me. Now I understand really the concern and the fear that an advertiser would have moving into Facebook, because the original metric of success, i.e. a purchase, might not actually be accurate at all.
If you're basing yourself on IDFAs, if you're an attribution provider, you're leveraging an attribution provider that leverage his data from those IDFA, yes, there is a huge problem. But there are other ways. There's machine learning, there's AI, there's other ways to mitigate it. But yes, but the industry isn't getting impacted, definitely.
Interesting. So I think maybe, and you had touched on that before, where you have a smaller sample size of data, right? So instead of having 100 people opting in, where you can measure the data moving through, you might have 5 to 12 people opting in. And so that just reduces the proportion of the population that you're measuring. And so do you think then that makes the analytics coming through into that channel more directional rather than definitive?
You know, for sure it's direction, but there's different type of directional. There is biased directional and there is directional with an high accuracy.
Okay.
And we're not talking about that one. We're talking if we're talking about opt-in rates of around 5 to 10%, it's a biased direction, meaning that the sample of people that stayed opt-in, who are they, right?
Right. Who are the opt-in people? So I think what's interesting about that then is, how do you think then, from a data perspective side, how do you think that brands will negotiate with consumers as it relates to receiving enough information to get privacy and then using that information for their own marketing?
So there's different approach. One is not at all to rely on this type of IDFA. So it's really leveraging machine learning, what I said earlier. It's coming up with every statistics approach to measure those insights. There is a way like that, you know, but if you still want to go with data that's you can tie to a name, and you need to offer them something. But again, I believe it's going to be biased, because who are the people that will agree to be paid to give up on their privacy?
Right.
Is it affluent people? Do affluent people really need it to get paid $10, even $100, right? And give up on their privacy? I do not believe something like this would be accurate as well. So it's
because suddenly what happens is that the folks that you're measuring in terms of their responses are actually a subset of maybe your real customer group. It's kind of like measuring the people who respond to a survey and taking that as the de facto truth of all of your customers, whereas actually they're the people who are just responding to the survey.
Exactly. And who are those people that are still opting in? Maybe they don't listen to the news. There is some bias to this group.
Sure. Well, what's interesting about that is, you know, I guess I didn't make the connection, and I'm really glad you did, Shira, that data privacy laws not only affect the ability for brands to understand their consumers, but it also affects their ability to measure attribution of their marketing programs.
That's correct. Correct. So, for example, you know, we are being asked a lot about smart TV. You know, what is going to happen? So, if your attribution provider is leveraging data, for example, from Vizio is filling now with the SEC, the S1, and they're writing. You can find it online easily. They're writing that they're collecting data. That's really personal information, and they may be liable to issues because of that. They're really, wow. I can find you. I don't want to say, you know, too much, but I can find it. You can easily find it. So it's a big problem. So if you invest you know, your data, your budget on television, and if you want to measure this investment based on this type of data stemming from uninformed consent, think twice.
Right, because it actually, you might be liable because it's not consentable data, but also too, it could be skewed and biased. That's interesting. It's amazing. Yeah. I think what we'll find is, you know, if we all kind of agree, you guys seem to think that there's going to be a federal program out in place. Hopefully that will help, and the idea of what Apple is doing suddenly becomes maybe the bar that is set for other apps as well. Well, of course, time will tell. We'll find out as federal legislation moves ahead. Hey, it's 11:21 already, which has been fantastic. Shira, I really appreciate you jumping in and handling these questions. Tom, do we have questions from our audience? Now it's going to be for Shira.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions that, you know, and apologies to everybody. Obviously, Ron never arrived, and Reed, after a stellar first answer, I guess he went out in the blaze of glory and just was like, "I'm done here, clap, clap." Yeah. But we lost Reed as well, so I come back after missing a couple of these, and all of a sudden everything goes to pot. But anyway, good questions out there. And you know, Chris, please take a crack at these too if you feel the need. Do you believe that the Apple privacy rights issue will hurt media sales for Facebook? If so, at what level?
I think that I'll do my simple answer and then defer to Shira for the wiser, more insightful, and complex answer. I would say that Facebook was, of course, fighting this like banana cakes and put a bunch of ads out, and then they kind of had an about face. So actually, it's really good for Facebook. This is going to work well. I think Facebook was mostly concerned about the small business marketer, where Facebook is a natural channel, somewhat affordable, And I think that that revenue is going to be challenged because if I'm a small business person, then the mystery and the fog of whether my Facebook ads were performing or not becomes even more mysterious and cloudy. I think that it's a different impact on small business than major brands and major enterprise level brands who have other outlets. Shira, what's your take on that?
I think that it's going to impact in terms of people would want to know how their investment is doing. So instead of being in the dark, they will say, maybe let's try something else. Till Facebook will find a solution, or we're going to reinvent itself and bring additional products. I don't know. Just while the idea, but overall, I believe that if you want to really measure investment with an attribution platform, what I can talk about, it's going to be hard to measure that investment, and you would want to divert it. So this is how I see it. Yeah.
Great, thank you both. Next question. It seems like no proposed replacement for Google's third-party cookies yet is acceptable to a majority of platforms or marketers. Do you see an overall solution or a workaround for marketers coming in the near future?
I can answer. So, there are solutions. As I mentioned, there are different solutions based on machine learning. They're more sophisticated. It's not at all based on an ID. It's based on probabilities.
Right.
Moving from a deterministic approach, which is like an ID number, to a probabilistic approach. Now, if you have a model that's robust, you can get to high accuracy without infringing privacy. So, but you need to have that model.
That's a great answer, Shira, because I think that the reason why I was reluctant to say no, Thomas, is that I haven't seen anything out there that's going to be a replacement. And also, too, I think that that's the spirit of why Google is doing it, right? I think that the spirit is greater privacy protection. And so what that means is that there's like a pendulum swing where the data was so tight that a whole lot of industry and thinking moved to exploiting that tight data. Now it's swinging back and there's going to be less. My hunch is it'll probably settle someplace in the middle. And then I think that to Shira's point, there's going to be some more thinking, maybe some AI, but also some, gosh darn it, old-fashioned human brain thinking. I mean, look, people were marketing 30 years ago before there was the interwebs, right? They figured out models, They figured out statistics, right? They had target audiences, they had lifters. I mean, they did some of this stuff too. So I think that the challenge will be developing new skills and thinking of looking at the data. I think that big challenge is especially for the generation of workers who came in, the generations, not only the Generation Z coming in, but the younger folks in their 20s and 30s who've only known spoon-fed analytics coming from a dashboard, right? And so that's, I think, going to be a really interesting transition within the profession.
It's made,
I can tell you that
please go ahead, sorry.
I can tell you that we've seen several agencies coming to us, saying, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And I explain them, options, things that are can be done, and not everything needs to be based on a privacy infringement to get data insight. And I think it's beautiful because this is my approach to bring insights without infringing privacy, and I think it's totally feasible. It's just another mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I think, it's obvious too that it's made the importance of your of the quality of your first party data even that more crucial.
Exactly.
And how you control it, how you access it, all of those things. So one last question. Obviously there's a cost to get folks to opt in. Is there any research that shows the time and money resources it will take moving forward to make audiences compliant with future and pending privacy rules?
It's a great question. I have no idea, truly. I think that, Shira, do you have an idea on that?
I have not seen such a research, but what I can tell you, we're doing a research now about related to opt-in in private smart TVs. So when it's done, we're going to share it. But yes, it's
almost like you could have another metric, Tom and Shira, where everyone knows a CPA. Some businesses have a cost per lead. You could actually have a cost per opt-in, right? CPOI, right? As something comes in, because a CPOI, you heard it here, folks. You heard it here first.
I love it.
Your CPOI is going to be a different metric than your cost per lead, because an opt-in doesn't mean that you're actually getting good lead information, understand that, and then of course the purchase. So we'll see, maybe CPOI is something that comes down the pike.
You know what?
I just had one more come in for Shira, if we can wedge it in.
Go for it.
For sure.
As an attribution vendor as well, we use ID graphing to identify paths to purchase. Does Shira agree this is a good workaround?
We are, our approach is, as I mentioned, is completely data science based. You know, if someone wants to talk to me, of course, I know it's not the time to do it here, but I can definitely talk whoever wants to talk with me about this. But our approach is completely data science based and you know, based on first party data.
Great. All right. Well, I think we're kind of up against it here. I'm going to rejoin everybody as my camera works. Hey, thank you to both of you. Thanks to Reed for his stellar first answer, and I'm sorry to miss you, Ron. But still, tremendous stuff, Chris, Shira. Thank you both. Wonderful. Your next opportunity as a viewer is to attend a live online Take 20 episode is Wednesday, June 9th, for the first of a 3-episode series about the media landscape. Please visit thepdmi.com/take-20 to check out the upcoming schedule and register to attend today. Until then, thanks again for checking out this episode of the PDMI's Take 20. Enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your work week. Be well. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.